Hello, this is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. I'm also here to give you updates about immigration topics, how to get your status here, how to get protection from removal. And I do have updates today. So we are word on the street. We are getting interview notices again for marriage based and family based immigration cases. So interviews are coming back. So they're phasing into requiring interviews for marriage based cases specifically. They're going to be screening a lot harder, or they're going to be a lot stringent in regards to vetting these applications. So a part of that is going to be the interview. So, buckle up, guys. We need to make sure we're prepared for the interviews again. This is not strange to me because this was a way of life for me and my practice back between 2016 and 2020. That was basically a part of the protocol is the interview. So it's going back to that again. But I wanted to talk to you about some of the red flags associated with these kinds of applications. And it's important more than ever because now, when you go into these interviews, they really depend heavily on whatever happens in that interview. That interview is going to set the pace for whether you get approvals or denials. But also, what you do before the interview can either be devastating or can set the tone for a successful application process. So, I want to be able to explain to you what these are. For example, we have a majority of our cases, 99% of our cases have marriage-based cases have been approved. Um, and the reason why we've been so successful during the last administration, right up until now, is because of the way we prepare the applications. We're very thorough with all of our applications. Our applications go through multiple levels of review. And the reason why that is so important in the work that I do is because when we set the tone from the beginning, when you get to your interview, that officer is going to have a very good impression of you as a married couple. They're going to have a really good picture about your relationship already. And so I would say in most cases, they've already made their decision about whether they're going to give you a hard time, right? Or at the interview, or whether they're just going to go through the motions, ask some questions, and confirm what they haven't seen before in the application packet that you are a bona fide couple. So what I've seen, the main mistake I've seen is, and it tends to be people who do the applications on their own, or they go to these I like to say these corner shop notarios, people who are not certified. They are not authorized in any way to give immigration advice. They go ahead and say, oh, yeah, they can do your marriage based application. Or you'd go the process alone, right? You go and do it on your own, thinking this is just marriage. I mean, it's supposed to be really simple. And then that's what happens though, is between the underestimating the process, looking for a cheap way to submit those applications through these notarials, you go ahead and you submit an what I call a skeletal application. A lot, especially now when there's a lot of fear that you just want to get your papers in. Maybe you and your partner have been talking. You're maybe even a few weeks into your relationship, and you and your partner are saying, "Okay, let's just get married and file these papers quickly to prevent you from being deported or getting caught up in any kind of complexities like that, detention or removal. But the problem with that is in the rush to get the documents in, because you're more focused on getting documents in, you, or I should say the married couple, and even the notarial in most cases, misses the important part of this application, and it's the fact that you have to include very meaningful evidence. So what happens is, okay, you need to get a joint bank account, right? Maybe you maybe because you don't have your papers yet, you can't go on the lease. So you say, okay, let's get a joint bank account. So you run to the bank, you get a bank account, you get the first bank statement that now shows the both of your names on it. The thing about it is the bank statement has nothing on it. There's no money going in, there's no money going out. It just looks like two people who opened up a bank account, and that's it. Now, let me remind you that joint bank accounts can be created by any two people. Any two people can go start a bank account. So that doesn't say anything to the immigration officers when you're submitting a bank account with no money in there. As a matter of fact, you're actually creating a red flag in your application. That's going to be the first early red flag in your application. And the reason it's a red flag is because it just shows that it's an arrangement. Two people opened up a bank account, but there's nothing in there, no money going in and out of the bank account. So it looks like a setup. I've seen this time and time again. I've had to respond to notices of intent to deny, which we did get approved, but they had gone through the process by themselves without an attorney. And these are the pitfalls, the traps that they fell in. They just rushed the application, got their joint bank account in, but didn't have anything in the joint bank account. Didn't truly show how they were paying their, being able to spend money together, how they were commingling their funds. What they were doing is to pay bills. They would send money to each other. So the spouse would pay for groceries, the US citizen spouse would pay the rent. And so they were sending money back and forth to each other for expenses through Cash App, right? And that would have been more meaningful evidence to show than an empty bank account. But they chose to just submit an empty bank account because they just constantly hear submit joint bank account, submit joint bank account. But what that did was that created a red flag. So my point here is you can actually even create red flags in your applications doing these kind of things by submitting documents that really don't mean a lot. And here's another red flag. Ironically, this is another red flag in a marriage-based application. You submit pictures. The thing about it is when you look at the pictures are all just of your very, very tiny wedding, usually a court wedding. And the whole, 5, 6, 7 pictures are just you and your spouse in your wedding clothes, maybe with one or two witnesses, going to the park for some pictures, doing the pictures in the court when you're getting married, and that's it. There's nothing else. That's a red flag. So, yes, they like to see wedding pictures, but that doesn't mean anything. Again, that meant plenty of people who set up fraudulent marriages do that. They set up this whole scene, they get married in court, then they set up this whole scene, go to the park, take some pictures at the park, and then they submit only that. Well, that's a red flag. And immediately now the officer is looking at this and saying, okay, I see where this is going. Empty joint bank account. Now pictures look really, there's not many pictures and only one picture. The only set of pictures are wedding pictures in a small setting with very few people. The next thing is the officer is like, okay, I have some questions for them. in their interview, right? And the officer now is set to give you a very hard time in the interview because they have already developed a negative opinion about your application, your marriage. So make sure you're focusing on the the substance in your documents that you're submitting. Don't just try to check a checklist. Okay, bank account check, joint bank account check, joint lease check, joint insurance documents check. Make sure those documents truly reflect the kind of life you're living and building with your spouse, because you will be creating a red flag. Prepare for your interview. So if you go to the link in my profile, after the live, go to the link in my profile, you'll see the link tree. I do have downloadable copies of an interview guide, and also a guide, explaining how to get to yes in your marriage-based case. So I go through the checklist of documentation that you need to make sure that you have ways to avoid mistakes, but also there's an interview guide. So go to the link afterwards and go ahead and sign up and get those handouts, because while that is not personalized legal advice, and you should not take it as a substitute for representation, I think by providing you that information, you'll be able to get informed about what this is going to look like, and you will truly know what's in store for you, and you'll start to prepare accordingly. Because if the interview goes wrong, then it turns into a very, very long journey, which may not end well. So keep that in mind. Make sure you prepare for the interview. Look at those sample questions. Make sure you and your spouse are on the same page. Prepare your application beforehand. Make sure when you prepare it, though, don't just put documents for putting documents' sake. Put some solid, substantial documentation together that truly reflect the way you're living your lives. The other thing to note is, at the time, of course, this has nothing to do with the interview, but when you're submitting it, to avoid delays, make sure you're submitting your medical, and make sure you're submitting your affidavit of support, and make sure you fully analyze your affidavit of support to make sure that you as a petitioner qualify, or your petitioner qualifies and will be approved for the affidavit of support, or to see if you need to have a joint sponsor for the affidavit of support. Very important, because even if you show that you qualify for marriage base, they would approve it. If that affidavit of support is not right, then they are going to deny your adjustment of status application. So please be mindful of this. That's what we do here at the law firm. We do help married couples to get their green cards, and it really has been a pleasant journey for us at the law firm to represent married couples. Make another thing, though, is make sure your spouse is 100% involved. This is your petitioning spouse, right? The U.S. citizen spouse. Oftentimes, when I'm trying to decide whether I want to take a marriage-based case, I do look at the way the couples interact with me, and how seriously they're taking it. If I only do an appointment with one spouse, and then the U.S. citizen is not anywhere around, that tends to make me nervous, because the cases that have been successful, and why we're so successful, is because both spouses are equally 100% involved in the process. The U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident spouse is 100% involved in making sure that their spouse is going to get the papers. They want their spouse to get their documents, so they independently call me. Sometimes it's very easy to get them to cooperate, to give documentation. um, so if your spouse, make sure your spouse understands that this is a commitment and that they're going to have to give their tax documents. They're going to have to show their social security number. They're going to have to show federal tax filings. Sometimes US citizen spouses, especially those spouses that have never been exposed to the immigration process, they tend to not understand that until after the marriage and until you're filing papers. Then they're freaking out about how much this is taking out of them. So they often assume that just by being married to them, you are entitled to get your papers, and that's not true. So I think I've given you some tidbits of information here. I just gave you the tip of the iceberg. It really depends on what kind of couple you are, what are the issues involved. So make sure that you look at the guide and just to educate yourself and get legal representation. One more thing I do want to say is, as we see policies, the previous Trump administration policies coming back, over time, we can expect to see, first of all, we're already seeing extreme vetting. So that means that they're going to be nitpicking at everything. They may even go right back to your own visa application to when you were entering the country to see how did you enter the country, what did you say on your visa application. So be mindful about that. And keep in mind that with this application process, they're going to evaluate you for fraud. If they do see that they do suspect fraud, which once again, the red flag documents that you submit, or you creating red flags in your application, can lead to them investigating fraud. That's longer processing times. And that also means Stokes interview, where they separate you and they give you a very hard time. It's difficult interview. It's very nerve wracking. And no matter how much you know your spouse, in that moment when you're under so much pressure, being separated, wondering what your spouse is saying, it can lead to even mistakes during the interview. So, make sure there's no room for error. With this administration, there's very little room for errors. Okay. Another change that we can expect now we have the interviews coming back. The other change we can expect is we might see public charge rule coming back. Public charge rule means that the Trump's rules were a lot more stringent and they construed public charge very broadly. Now, public charge means they're going to look to see, is the immigrant spouse, are they more likely to depend on public benefits as their main source of sustenance? If so, they are public charge inadmissible, meaning you will not be approved for a green card. The last time, the way that they did that was they added all sorts of requirements. So, in addition to showing income, the immigrant spouse had to provide, and or family member had to provide documents showing employment history, uh, medical history, education history, age, household size, past income, credit history, any loans taken out, any pending debt, any unpaid debt. That, of course, can be reflected it would be seen on the credit history. So as you can see, and then it turned into a balancing test to see, based on the totality of the circumstances, all these facts that they're looking at, do they think you're going to be a public charge? Now, this is not only going to affect marriage-based cases. This is going to affect everybody, because think about it. If you're a US citizen and you're trying to sponsor your aging parents to get their green card, and your aging parents are retired, so they're probably not going to be coming here to work, that means that once again, they have to depend on you for income. As with age comes illnesses, so that's going to accrue medical bills. How now they're going to look at, okay, well, how are they going to pay for the medical bills? Do they have insurance? During the last administration, we had situations where if they were here in the US, they bought insurance to try to be able to show that they could afford any kind of medical bills that came up along the way. But you can see how that could go against your aging parents, because they can't work, they're aging. And in addition to that, they have health issues that will now cause very expensive medical bills. And because of that, at the result of that is, are they more likely to depend on Medicaid to be able to sustain themselves or to get treatment? So that may be coming, is likely to come, because it was fully implemented during the Trump administration, and I don't see why they wouldn't want to bring that back, because they're abiding by the previous principles, in addition to even more stuff that they're adding to that. So just be prepared, start being prepared, start schedule your evaluations, so you make sure that you are fully prepared for what's coming, that you're protected, you have an advocate. Um, there are solutions. That's what I want you to understand. There's a lot going on. There are a lot of executive orders. There are a lot of policy changes going on. However, there's years and years and years of case precedent, rules and policies that can still help you to be protected against deportation, but also help you to prevail in your case. But it really comes down to having the right experienced advocate to be able to help you to overcome challenges. So sometimes it just comes down to having a good lawyer versus not having a lawyer, because um, when you're, for example, many of you who are non-lawyers, you don't even know the rules, right? You don't know the rules. If an officer is saying they're going to make a decision on a certain basis, you don't have the knowledge to be able to convince that officer otherwise, based on the policy manual, based on statutes, based on regulations, based on case law. Sometimes it's going to come down to that. Many times it's going to come down to that. So that's where I say I am encouraging you to definitely get legal representation as we start to see increased complexities in these cases. All right, I think I have spoken enough. So now I'm going to go ahead and just answer some questions. So let me go ahead and scroll through. Today, I'm going to go ahead and start on here. Start with YouTube, then Instagram, then TikTok. So bear with me, and I'll get to you as soon as I can. Good night. Is it true that people with 2-year conditional green card will not be able to renew it? No, that is not true. However, very important to know this. They keep in mind that the changes that are coming, there's all of this talk about undocumented immigrants versus the legal immigrants. What I want you to understand here is that everybody is in the same boat, because this administration is not only targeting undocumented immigrants. They are targeting legal immigrants. They're looking to reduce legal immigration, which means through extreme vetting, they're going to look at the nooks and crannies of everybody's applications. If you have a green card, you're going from 2 year to 10 year, they are going to put your application through extreme vetting. If you are a permanent resident and you are going for citizenship, they are going to put your case through extreme vetting. If you are coming here on a work visa or you're trying to renew your student visa, they are going to put your case through extreme vetting. If you don't have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted, then they can get you on technicalities. They can get you on errors in your mistake in your application, because the whole point of this administration is they're focusing on uh, attacking the eligibility of people to come into this country. So I don't want you to look at it as it's only the undocumented people, but we have to be ready for everybody to have a harder time. And through extreme vetting, they're looking for fraud. So if you're going from a 2 year to a 10 year, they're going to go backwards. They're going to look at your application more carefully. They're going to make sure that the first marriage was not fraudulent before they grant that 10 year. So they're not going to cancel. So they're not. It's the 2 year is not going away. The 2 year to 10 year is not going away. However, you, right now we have what, 4 years processing times, average of 4 year processing times. It's probably going to get worse. Um, so keep that in mind. But they're not going to get rid of it. That's not something that has been talked about. Also, here's another just tip here. If you're traveling on your green card, make sure that you don't have anything in your background that's going to cause a red flag, particularly if you're going through the 2 year to 10 year green card process. Limit your travel. Wait until you get through your case, because if you're outside of the country and your green card, that 10 year gets denied, you're outside of the country. So that means that you could potentially be denied entry into the US. It could also mean that when you get here, you could be detained at the airport pending removal proceedings, because now it shows a 10 year green card, that your 2 to 10 year green card was denied. So please do not. And I saw a case like this earlier on where this person went through the process by themselves. The spouse divorced her, but she did not know that she could apply on her own with a waiver, and just went through the process thinking she could just go through it by herself without applying for a formal waiver to apply on her own. And they denied it and put her in removal. So that's going to become a lot more common. So do not travel if you have a pending case from 2 year to 10 year. I am going to just say be very cautious about traveling. For my clients, I am very conservative, and I say stay put if you can. Stay put, stay put. If you feel like you have to travel, you must travel at your own risk, because the risk is very high right now. Okay, and on-WED F1, after having visa approved entering US, does one have to wait for actual green card to get married? So no, you can do it through employment. There are different avenues to the green card that doesn't involve marriage, but it's which one do you qualify for? Do you have an employer that wants to sponsor you? Do you have, do you have could you possibly qualify for the NIW, National Interest Waiver? Can you qualify for another type of visa, like an E1 or E2 visa? So those are the questions that you have to evaluate. Good night. Is it true that people with 2-year green cards will not be able to renew? I answered that. Hey, I come to the US on F1 visa, no applied asylum. I got work permit and social. Any my case is pending in court, so I'm subjected to be deported. So your case has to be heard by an immigration judge because you're going through removal. You already have the work permit and social, so that does give you a certain layer of protection. But keep in mind that you definitely have to make sure that you have solid representation and you're prepared for your final court hearing because this is your last line of defense. Is asylum, or if you get withholding or CAT, those can stop you from being deported, but you have to present a good case to the court. Now, if you are ordered removed, that's by the judge, then they would at that point possibly take you into custody. So, in some jurisdictions, that's exactly what they're doing now. They are assigning ICE officers to go in with the government attorney. And if the judge orders removal, then they're planning to take people in who are ordered removed on the spot. So this is where I say, leading up to your trial, you have to make sure that you have a solid case. Thank you for all the info. You're welcome. Any news on disputes for N400 denials? I was suggested to bring mine for de novo review. A bit confused about what's next. So it sounds like somebody is advising you. Yes, you can bring your N400. You can either appeal it. So you can ask for reconsideration through the 336, and that's still USCIS, but you can also bring it to a district court and they can, when I say review it de novo, it means review it from scratch to be able to determine whether you do qualify for citizenship. But I'm not your attorney. I don't know what your case is. So just having an N400 alone isn't going to enable me to decide whether that should be reviewed by a district court. Um, Good night. How can I get in touch with you? So my number is going across the screen right now. So go ahead and you can call that number. The call team is open 24/7. After hours like this, they'll take your information and then the next business day, our intake team will give you a call and we will do an initial evaluation, case evaluation. And that is free of cost. And the reason we do that is to make sure we don't waste your time, we don't waste your money. We want to make sure that we can help you. So we ask certain questions to see if you qualify for our assistance. And we're very excited when you do. And then at that point, we go straight into strategy. So we want to, we schedule an appointment for a consultation fee to be able to talk strategy because now we know it's very likely that we can move forward with you. We talk strategy and then get to work in that meeting. All right. So we've been together for 25 years. That's a long time. But sometimes we just want to get married. We got married with regular clothes, two witnesses. It's been 12 years ago. It's when they passed a law where a gay couple can get one of the husband. Okay, so I don't know if you are a same-sex couple, but it doesn't matter. Same-sex couple or not, you qualify for the papers. Now, here you talked about getting married in the court, you just had two witnesses. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. What you do have at your advantage here is you have history, 25 years, you have 12 years, you have been married for 12 years. That says a lot. But you just have to prove that in the documentation, right? So just saying you've been married for 12 years isn't enough. You have to present it in the documentation. Where the red flag comes in is where you are you just get married. Hi there, Melanie. You just got married, and now you're just submitting skeletal information, and you're sending pictures only of your very tiny wedding, which looks like an impromptu wedding. So that adds up to a red flag. But in this case, when you've been together for 25 years, you definitely have enough history. You have enough friends and family. You have documentation. You have pictures over the last 25 years. You probably have joint bills, and transactions you can show together, to show that history. And that's what can make your case strong. Um, I don't know though. If you Here's the deal. If you're experiencing any problems though that's causing a hurdle in your marriage-based process, this is where you get in touch with us. Do you deal with students? I'm a student on a visitor's visa. It's not expired. Anything I can do to get status? So give us a call because we do look at solutions in cases like that. However, getting the F1 visa, it may not be possible. It just depends on what your circumstances are. All right. Hello there on Instagram. When you file to remove conditions and get a 48 extension notice, can you file for citizenship? Or do you have to wait for a 10-year green card to process first? So under the way that is done, you can apply for citizenship, and then what they'll do is evaluate both the green card application and the citizenship at the same time. Sometimes they'll do that. We have to see with this current administration if they're going to change that. But even under the last administration, the Trump administration, they did that, where they evaluated both at the same time. So we'll have to see. But yes, that is possible. What's your YouTube? I'd like to watch this live. Again, getting the green card. Getting the green card. So just go to the YouTube and type in getting the green card, and you'll be able to see it. If I got a job as a teacher, but do you believe I'll get the visa to come and teach in the US? It depends. Are you being sponsored? What's happening with that? What kind of visa? Do you have an employer who's doing it for you? It really just depends on those things. How long after marriage is it wise to file paperwork? I filed paperwork 2 days before my clients, 2 days after my clients got married. But here's the deal with those clients, they had a history together. They were together for 2 years before that. They had their own place together for a year before they got married. So they had some really, really good evidence to show that they had a pre-existing relationship, and that they just solidified it with a marriage. However, if you just eloped, I wouldn't recommend you elope. Say you eloped on Friday, and I wouldn't recommend you file your papers on Monday, because if you say you just met the person, you eloped, say you went to Vegas, you met them on Friday, and then say you're like, oh my gosh, this person is great, let's get married. You get married on Saturday in Vegas. I wouldn't recommend you file for your immigration papers on Monday, because there is no way you have all the paperwork that you need. There's no way you can show on paper that you're a bona fide married couple planning your future together. You're gonna need at least a month to do that, right? You have to find a place together, you have to move, you have to, get your joint documents in order, you have to just do what married couples do, to get settled as a married couple. So you have to spend time doing that, and then documenting it, and then filing. So it's gonna take some time to do that. So not it wouldn't be the day after you get married very quickly. It might be a few weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after you get married, depending on how fast you can gather the evidence that you're planning your lives together. I have been waiting for my asylum case decision for months. Is it okay to troubleshoot? I'm not sure what you mean by troubleshoot. Um, I don't know if that means to submit an inquiry. People are waiting for years. There is a way. So sometimes you can request that you're placed on a wait list. And if you really want to get your interview quickly, sometimes they may call you. And it depends too. It depends. Is your asylum case in court or is it going through the asylum office? That's another thing. But if it's at the asylum office, you may be able to get on their wait list. And if somebody cancels, you may get a call a day or two before and asking if you want to go into the interview instead. So, it may those avenues may be possible. Can I expedite consular appointment under certain circumstances? Yes. So they usually look at medical records. Um, yeah, I mean, medical situations, urgent medical or humanitarian situations, or if there's an error that caused a delay on the side of the National Visa Center or USCIS or the embassy, they may entertain and expedite there. But you have to present the evidence of that. I have a 2-year green card. I just lost my job. Does it affect me if I apply for unemployment? So, with unemployment, I would really have to see. It depends. Is unemployment a public benefit? I mean, I don't believe so. I'd have to verify that. But this is where it's very important to get in touch with us, so we can look at that. I don't want to take it for granted to say unemployment is not a public benefit. Um, so this is where you can always schedule some time to talk about your concerns because we'd have to look at that. Can F1 students do part-time job while studying in the US after 1 year? That's possible. If somebody got court date and released from detention by ICE, so expedited rules are applicable on them or not? Not necessarily. It just depends on case type, what's going on, for them to expedite. Hello, Maxine. Nice to see you. You have an asylum case pending and you have an ICE check-in. Is it okay to go? I wouldn't be able to answer that question because it's really on a case by case basis. So yes, ICE check-ins are happening. Some people are being detained. Some people are going about their usual routine doing the ICE check-ins. It all depends on what's going on in your particular case. This is where you definitely want to sit down and be advised by an immigration attorney about your risk, and for you to even share your facts to determine what the risks are here. I'm about to do a VAWA. Okay, I guess that's good. You're making a move on something. Good night. If you have an ICE check-in, is it okay to go? So I just answered that. What if the bank account has no activity and you have a baby together? So having a baby together is very good evidence, but I wouldn't take it for granted. Make sure that if you're submitting your bank account statement, you're really making an effort to show activity, show financial commingling, or you are showing how, because if you both have a baby together, you're married, how are you sharing the expenses? Who's paying for the baby, for support of your baby? That is what you need to show. Are you exchanging money by Zelle or Cash App? If so, show those. Instead of showing an empty bank account, right? Maybe show how in real life what you're doing as a married couple to pay for your expenses. How long will it take for I-130 consular processing, married to US citizen, PD, March 2024? So it's usually once you get PD, which is you're documentarily qualified. Oh, priority date, March 2024. So once you get documentarily qualified, that means you've submitted all the documents to the NVC. Then I would say a year and a half to 2 years. Keep in mind that we may see it get longer, believe it or not. So we have to watch and see what the changes will be. And it's not even necessarily changes in the immigration law for consular processing, but more about who's going to be available to do these interviews. The embassies are probably going to be a lot short staffed because of all the terminations that are going on. So expect those times to get longer. All right. So now I'm on TikTok. I need help with U visa. Give us a call. We do that. So give us a call and we can help. The phone number is 561-405-4889. You can also see it on the profile page, and you'll see it on the website. You can also go to Linktree and submit your contact information, and we can go ahead and contact you. Good evening. I filed I-485 and I-601 since October 22nd. Still haven't received any receipt. So just make sure you track it. Sometimes if it takes that long, they may reject it. Maybe there's some requirement you didn't meet, and so they may reject it, or it's a really busy time. But what I say is, whenever we send our documents, we make exact copies of what we sent. We scan those in. We make sure that we track our packets to anywhere we're sending them. That way we can confirm it was delivered. It's just that on their end there's a delay. And so we wait and see. If it takes too long, we can contact them and we can show proof of delivery. But there is not much else to be done outside of contacting them after a while to verify they got it. Is it safe to travel outside of the USA if I'm a green card holder? Generally, it's okay. If you do have removal, or if you're in the middle of a 2 year to 10 year, I would be a little more cautious, especially if you have a pending 2 year to 10 year, and a decision is right around the corner. I definitely would not travel. I'd wait to see what the decision would be. Make sure everything goes well first before traveling. I'm about to become a US citizen, but I have medical to do. You think it will affect me? Do not get confused between US citizen and permanent resident. So when you say I have a medical to do, usually that's required for permanent residents, not for citizenship. So please do not put on any papers that you're a US citizen, because that would lead to very severe consequences and a permanent bar from getting your green card. So make sure you're not putting that you're a US citizen anywhere. Now, with permanent residents, if you have to do the medical, then if you don't get that medical in, it will definitely affect you. The doctor will definitely tell you what you need to submit. If you're short on vaccinations, the doctor will tell you. If there's something in your file that's going to create concern, the doctor will tell you in case there needs to be some corrective actions taken. For example, if you need a waiver or something of the sort, then the doctor will be able to tell you beforehand. So make sure you do that medical, though, and make sure you're meeting all the requirements for the medical. Any updates on asylee permanent residents? Not at this time. Good evening. I just want to know why my petition for my minor child is still under review. It could be it's just in line. So when it says currently under review, it doesn't mean that they have your file looking at your file. It can be under review for a year without changing. So just keep that in mind, that under review usually means they don't need anything from you right now, and it's probably at the bottom of a pile on an officer's desk to be reviewed. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything is going wrong. Do you recommend someone with a 10-year green card to file for citizenship if they're at the 5-year mark? Yes. But before you file for citizenship, make sure that you meet all the requirements. Right now, as I said before, there's going to be extreme vetting. When we say extreme vetting, they're going to be extremely strict. They're going to go backwards. So, for example, they're going to go backwards to if you enter the country with their visitor's visa, they're going to go look at how you entered. What did you say on your visitor visa application? They're going to go through the entire course of your journey through permanent residence to up to applying for citizenship. So you want to make sure that everything is solid in your application. If you do have any, so there are some surprising bars to citizenship that you should know about. So those surprising things, believe it or not, for example, if if you cheated, if you're applying for citizenship and there's infidelity that broke up your marriage, that can bar you from getting citizenship. So be very careful. So, for example, if there's a child outside of the marriage, then that's going to raise some questions about how did it affect your marriage and whether it is a ground to find that you lack good moral character. If you have not paid your taxes or you have some tax problems, that's going to be a big issue for good moral character. Um, Also, if believe it or not, if you're, uh, one of these individuals that are in any kind of polyamorous relationships. So, for example, you have an arrangement with maybe you have one spouse, but you have an arrangement with multiple people to treat those multiple people like your spouse, even though you're legally married to one person, that can raise questions about polygamy. And yes, even though it's one legal marriage and it's an agreement that the other people that you have a relationship with, it's just an agreement among consenting adults, it may not matter. So keep that in mind. If that is a lifestyle that you are living right now, you have to be wary about how that can affect your application. If you have any DUIs, if you have any convictions, you want to make sure that you are consulting us. You can definitely give us a call. We can advise you on those, but those can stop you from getting your green card. They're going to look at everything. They're going to look at your answers on your past applications, the way you got your green card to make sure that everything pans out before they give citizenship. I did see this happen during the last Trump administration. I did get multiple calls from people during the last time where their citizenship was denied, and instead they were being sent to deportation because they found fraud at the visa, visitor's visa. So 20 years ago, they put put that they weren't married when they were married, or they put that they didn't have children on their visitor's visa when they did, and they discovered it years later when they were applying for citizenship. So please make sure that you're seeking legal advice and you have an attorney to go through these complexities. Let's see. What should I do as a flight attendant? I get out of the country often and I have a remove of conditions pending. That's a good question. I would really want to speak with you in a consultation to be able to advise further. But know that, yes, and it depends, right? Because if everything is good in your marriage, you don't have any concerns, that may not be an issue. However, if you have a removal of conditions pending and it's based on a waiver because your spouse is no longer involved, or you never filed a waiver and your spouse is no longer involved in your application, then that is where you need to really pay attention. But I would say in your case, definitely get in touch with us, schedule an appointment so we can talk about your facts, any concerns you have, so that we can properly advise you and move forward. So even if a person gets the file expunged, I can still file for you visa. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So no, the danger with the expungement though is that it's wiped from the system, and law unless you have the court papers, law enforcement don't have the ability to pull those records, and so they can't do a U-cert. But if you have those documents and you request a U-cert, that may be a way around that. What should I do? So I answered that. Good evening. I just want to know why my petition for my minor child is still under review. Answer that. Is it true that if your green card is not up to 2 years, you cannot travel? No. So I don't know if you saw this viral. There's a video I saw, I think on TikTok, talking about a green card holder who was I think the person explained that they had their green card for less than 2 years and traveled. It's not true that you cannot travel on a 2-year green card. I don't know the facts in that case, and that's where it's very important, though, to get legal advice, because it really is on a factual basis, on a case by case basis. That person was only speaking based on the knowledge, the very limited knowledge that they probably had about the process. But it's not true that you cannot travel um, if you've had your green card for less than 2 years. But when you travel, make sure that you are not exceeding, 6 months. 6 months is pushing it. Make sure that you are not worried about other things going on in your case. Don't make sure you're not going through removal, because if you're going through removal, make sure that you also did not that you applied for your 2 year the renewal on your 2 year before it expired. Do not travel without the extension letter and the 2 year. So those are just some tips, but it's not a thing that you can't travel as a green card holder, but you have to be careful what's in your background. What about you have and for extension of remove? Well, can you travel outside of the US? Oh, 4 years. So what if you have 4 years extension of conditional removal? Can you travel out of the US? So I'm going to say this, I'm being very conservative on travel for my clients. My recommendation is going to be very conservative. And that has been a consensus not only with me, but with other of my colleagues, right? Everybody right now is saying stay put. It's not worth the risk. So if you have a pending 2 year conditional green card, you definitely want to make sure. So if you have a 2 year conditional green card, there is always the risk that you're outside of the country and that gets denied, and now you're outside of the country. So in that case, I say that's a risk, and for me, I just think that's too big of a risk. But ultimately, it comes down to what my client whether they want to bear the risk. But I would advise against travel. Um, what should I do as so I answered that. Seeking asylum and married to a U.S. citizen, what are the possibilities for that person? So it depends. How did you enter the country, first of all? If you enter through the border, then did you get paroled? If you got paroled and it's the right kind of parole, then marriage based is a possibility. And then you could leave the asylum. But keep in mind that once you file for asylum, it's always going to be on the record. And it means that if now you're returning to your country right after you get the green card, that could raise fraud questions about whether that asylum was even true. Because when you file for asylum, you're saying you can't go back to your country. So you have to take all of these things into consideration. Hello, good evening. I just want to know why. Also, I answered that. What should I do? So I answered that. Uh, I have a land as property. Can this be used to help my green card and citizenship? No, having land alone is not going to qualify you. You can invest in a business here in the United States, and investing in that business can get you the green card. What should I do? So I answered that. My husband filed I-130, was a green card holder. My son was 16 at the time of start. Now is a citizen one next. So I don't know, is that for you or the son? So if your son was 16, I don't know what year. If your son is under 21, then they now qualify as an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen. So their application can be upgraded. Make sure if it's at the National Visa Center, what we do is we go ahead and we inform them of the change in the status of your spouse. And then at that point, once they upgrade the application, it means you might get an interview faster than before. Now, if the son is here in the United States, then and the husband is now a U.S. citizen, adjustment of status is possible now. But get in touch with us and let's make sure we're advising you properly. Is it possible to have working permit in the Donald Trump regime? Yes, I just got work permits last week. Absolutely, people are getting their work permits. It's just that things are going to get harder, more complicated, more steps. But it does not mean that work permits are going to stop altogether. So, absolutely, and we're getting them. What should I do? Let's see. Thanks for all the follows. I appreciate it. I applied my I-130 after 14 months. So yes, it can take a while. It can take a little over a year. We might see things get longer processing times. Good evening. I just want to know why. So I answered that. I came to the US as a F1 student and I get married to a US citizen. I stopped going to school after marriage. So if you are married to a US citizen, they will not necessarily hold that against you. But just be wary that once again, with the extreme vetting that they're doing, when I say extreme vetting, it means they're looking at every single aspect of your application. They're going to look at the circumstances of your entry into the US as an F1 and you know depending on what they find, they may or may not have questions. So you want to just make sure you do an evaluation with us, schedule a strategy session with one of our attorneys so that we can talk about the very specific facts and make sure that you'd be okay. Is it true that if your green card is not up to 3 years, you cannot travel? No. What should I do as a flight attendant? So that's where you definitely want to have a conversation with us. I filed, so I answered that. My son is in the Air Force. Can he file my papers? If you enter the country without permission and your son is in the military, so listen up because this might apply to many people or some people watching this. If you're the widow or widower of anybody who was in the military as a veteran, or they are in the military, whether and different, different legs of the military, then you can qualify for what's called military parole in place. And that allows the immediate relatives of a U.S. citizen member of the military to apply for parole. That's special permission to be here. It gives special permission to be here and allows that special permission then enables the immediate relative, which would be the son or daughter, the spouse or the parent of a military member, to file for adjustment of status. So it fixes that. So absolutely, he can file, just depending though on the way you entered. If you overstayed your visa, you can't qualify for this. Because if you overstayed your visa, you will just be able to qualify for adjustment of status. So you wouldn't need that extra layer of protection, and you wouldn't need that parole to fix your situation. My friend has a 10-year visa. She wants to travel, but she's scared to travel, hearing so many things. Right. So a part of the extreme vetting is when you're coming into the United States, they are going to be subjecting a lot of people to more scrutiny. And that also means an increased rate in turning people around, canceling their visas. So I absolutely agree. I think right now, you should possibly put a hold, if you can, on traveling on that visa until you fully understand what the policies are going to look like. The visitor's visa, you have it, but first of all, do you have any concerns about your individual circumstances? But also, if you can, maybe just wait to see what's going to happen, and that way you're more prepared coming in. Do you think it's better for him to come back sooner? He was supposed to come back in 5 months. Not sure. I don't know what that's connected to. Minimize the length of your travel for sure. I was scheduled for biometrics last September 2024. However, my green card is still actively in review. That's not out of the ordinary. My dad has a green card and he's out of America for almost 4 months with all this going on. Okay, so definitely he's pushing it. He should not exceed 6 months, but even 6 months is pushing it. So he should definitely limit his travel, especially if he wants to then get US citizenship. That can affect him getting US citizenship. I have a question. We processed my green card last year around August, and I was scheduled, and I don't see the rest. What should I do? So I answered that. I got my work permit U visa a month ago, but my husband hasn't been approved. When will he get approved? I'm not sure when. It just depends on a lot of factors. My husband has a 2-year conditional green card. We want to travel next week. Can we? I can't tell you yes, I can't tell you no, because I'm not your attorney and I don't want to have that kind of responsibility. But what I would say is, as a green card holder, it's okay to travel, but you have to make sure that you have no concerns in your background. You're not traveling with an expired green card, that you have all your documents together to travel, that you have your extension letter if you've already applied for 10 years, that you have the original extension letter, that you have no criminal records, there were no arrests, no convictions in your background, because that could lead to a notice to appear and deportation when you're coming back. Um, if you're in the middle of applying for a 2-year to a 10-year, also be very careful about the risk, because if you're outside of the country and they deny the renewal, the removal of conditions, that presents a risk coming back. How long filing takes for adult child living in Jamaica? They have accept my application. So it depends on your age. Are you under 21? Are you 21 or over? It can range anywhere from a year and a half to 2 years for under 21 to 5 to 7 years for unmarried son or daughters, 21 or over. What is happening with Arizona office? My sis filed in November, no receipt. Confirm that it got there. And then it just depends. Sometimes they're busy. Sometimes it gets lost. You need to maybe even contact them to see if you can track it down. I have a question. We processed my green card last year around August, and I was scheduled, and I'm not sure where the rest was. So I'm not sure the E38, E39. I'd have to look at those categories to be able to tell you. But I would say if you have an attorney, definitely call your attorney to figure out if traveling is the best idea right now. I got my work permit, so husband is still waiting. Um, Will there be issues replacing a damaged green card? Not necessarily. They may do another biometrics, which leads to another background check. If you have nothing new in your background, it shouldn't be a problem. But replacing green cards and work permits is a pain right now. It can take in excess of a year to still get these replaced. So, still expect long processing times. Anyway, can the embassy give me a visa even if my I-601 is still processing? If you're filing an I-601, it means you're inadmissible, and that means they can't give you a visa because you're inadmissible. So will there be any, so they're going to, before they issue the visa, I think you may be talking about an immigrant visa. Before they issue it, they have to see that waiver approved. Will there be any issues replacing a damaged green card? So I answered that. My I-130 was approved, but 485 still pending. Is that fine? You might get a decision very soon. I have heard of one case right now from a colleague whose the I-130 was approved, but they still called them in for an I-485 interview. And for my client's VAWA was approved, but yet we still had to go in for an I-485 interview. Usually when that happens, it means that they're going to focus on your entry. So they may ask questions about how you entered. They may look to make sure that there's nothing in your background that's going to render you inadmissible. Okay, so please talk about B1, B2 visa and adjustment of status. So having a B1, B2 visa, which is a visitor's visa, is not going to qualify you for adjustment of status alone. But if you came on a B1, B2 visa and now you qualify through an employer, through a relative, through a spouse, through humanitarian means, and now you're applying for adjustment of status, then that is a possibility. Will there be any issues replacing a damaged green card? Not necessarily. I've seen a video on TikTok of someone talking about green card holders not entering the US. So these are green card holders who are subject to removal orders, green card holders who have been traveling or tried to travel on expired, green card holders who were trying to go from a 2 year to 10 year and it was denied, green card holders who are subject to removal and they're waiting for their court hearing, green card holders who have been arrested and they have a criminal record. They are the ones that may be denied or detained or sent to removal proceedings. So I am seeing that happening. However, if you have nothing in your background, you have, your 10-year green card, there are no concerns, that should not be the case. However, green card holders, anybody coming into the country, especially green card holders, are going to be subject to extreme vetting. which means that they are going to be putting a lot of people through secondary inspection, which can be nerve wracking. And if they do find something in your background, then at that point, they can possibly they can't remove a green card holder right on the spot. They have to put you through removal proceedings. So they're going to refer you to court. But of course, that brings a whole level of stress and uncertainty because they're trying to take your green card away, and now you have to go to court to defend it. But keep in mind that this is secondary inspections may be happening more at the airport, but it is where the danger is where they find something in your background. Um, all right, I got through. I'm gonna just scroll through to see if I see any more questions. Is it normal for USCIS to move your case to a USCIS office? Yes. What about I-601 and I-601A? So no changes. We haven't heard any changes on those. Can a 64-year-old woman with dyslexia get a waiver from the citizenship test? Yes, that's possible. Absolutely. You have to get a letter from a doctor to show that show the disability and how, and to explain, the doctor has to explain on a specific form how that will prevent them from doing the reading and possibly writing test, and also the knowledge test. So having dyslexia I'm not an expert, and I certainly cannot um, talk about how it can stop you from taking the civics test, right? The civics test is not written. The civics test is usually the officer asks the questions and you verbally tell the officer the answer. So the expert here, so the doctor would have to explain how the dyslexia can also prevent them from passing that civics test as well, if they want to be forgiven, be excluded or get waived from all of the exam. If you have a child that is over 21 and overstayed her visa, can her mom file change of status? Unfortunately not. That basic fact there would not permit adjustment of status. If someone got 10-year green card through VAWA and divorced after a few months, can she file for citizenship after 3 years? So if you are married to a US citizen spouse and you got VAWA, whether you're divorced or not, then you can apply within 3 years. If you were married to a green card holder, you'd have to wait 5 years. At my 10-year green card, is it safe to travel to Jamaica because my spouse lives there? So I just explained all of that. I'm pretty sure, hopefully you heard the answer. I can't tell you yes, I can't tell you no, just because I don't know your situation. I don't know your background, but please keep these things in mind. Is there any truth in halt or hold being placed on renewal of B1, B2 visas? So I would say partial truth right now. I'm gonna expect in the next few weeks to few months, we will be seeing extreme changes happening in B1, B2s, and more denials of B1, B2 visas and renewals because of the extreme vetting procedures that they're implementing. Can a green card holder get married to a spouse? Yes, and green card holders can sponsor their spouse as well. If you have a approved I-130 many years ago from my mother, can this be revisited? Even if I got married, I applied with my wife, but never completed the process because we got divorced. So this is more complicated, but if you're no longer married again, the I-130 um, the I-130 may be applicable here, but the problem is, was it sent to the embassy? And did the embassy, the National Visa Center, give you the opportunity to submit your documents? Did you not miss all of that deadline? if you did, then it may be too late. It just depends. What are some of the things a US citizen should have in order to get married? Proof of bona fides, proof of your citizenship. When I say bona fide, proof of the fact that your marriage is real, your income, make sure you have your at least six proof of income. Make sure you meet the income requirements on the affidavit of support. And make sure have a very robust history, your work history of you and your spouse, your address history as well. So make sure you have all of that information. Bona fides is going to be, joint documents, photos, anything to show that you've been putting yourselves out there as a married couple, building your lives together. So ways you pay your bills together, joint bills, household bills, and so forth. I'm not currently in Florida at the moment, but my wife is. When I'm gonna do my biometrics, would there be a problem going to Florida? Um, it depends on what your situation is. If you are here without your papers, I would not travel um, on the plane because now they may be looking, vetting those. Florida is also, if you enter the country without permission and you enter Florida, then you could face a misdemeanor and you're sentenced to 9 months, and there's no getting out of that 9 month sentence. There's no early release. So you want to, if anything, you may even want to reschedule the biometrics appointment to a closer location. But speak to your attorney because I'm not your attorney. I don't know your facts and circumstances. And if you're doing it at another biometrics, that may throw a wrench in your application by now changing addresses. So definitely have a conversation with us, call us, get help. And with that, I'm just going to close out here. I can go on and on, but I'm going to work to be back tomorrow. It's going to be late again because I'm currently at a conference. The conference here, we are talking about everything immigration and just looking at ways to tackle the challenges that are coming. So, what I say, the best thing you can do is contact us by going to the link in the profile or in the description of the video. Click on that link. You will see so much useful information at the top. You can sign up to get your free initial evaluation. That helps us to decide and helps you to decide whether we can potentially take your case. And at that point, we can then do a strategy session with one of our attorneys. So sign up for that. We're 24 hours. You can also call the office. The number's there. They'll take your information. And then during office hours, our intake staff will call and do the initial evaluation on the spot so that we can get started as soon as possible. So don't hesitate to do that. Now you can also DM us on all the platforms, except for YouTube, of course. But click on the link for YouTube. But if you feel more comfortable hitting the message button, do that. We have staff on board to go ahead and take your information, and then we can do that evaluation. Okay, so I'm seeing a ton of questions. Any updates about FAWA? Not right now. A mother can file for an overstay child. The overstay is forgiven because a child is an immediate relative. If the child is under 21, then yes. Under 20, the child is under 21 and enter the country legally. Are you on TikTok? Yes, I am. I'm immigration lawyer Sharifa on TikTok. So immigration attorney, no, so immigration lawyer Sharifa. So immigration lawyer Sharifa, go ahead and you can find me on TikTok. But the best, because we don't know if TikTok is going to be here, by the way. So those on TikTok, if you found me on TikTok, go over to Instagram and go look for immigration lawyer Sharifa on Instagram or getting the green card on YouTube. And you can follow me, like, subscribe there, and that way you will be updated. Because as you can see, I'm on these different platforms talking on Facebook as ST Law Office. So go ahead and find me there. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Tomorrow I'll definitely come talk to you about more updates and also answer your questions. So I'm looking forward to speaking with you. Give us a call for initial evaluation. Make sure you're doing that if you want personalized legal advice. Have a good night. Bye bye.